What it is, y'all, it's your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back with another Wistoria manga review. Now, today we're doing chapter 22. If this is your first time for whatever reason, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Let's jump in because, well, if this is your first time, you were in for a treat. This is really where Season 2 is going to kick off, and it's pretty nuts. I would highly recommend checking out chapter 21 before this if you haven't, but nevertheless, we are getting right into it. If you guys remember at the end of chapter 21, basically, they open up a bunch of those gates, and we know that all heck is about to break loose. Of course, this is the two guys from the dungeon. The main guy, I can't remember his name, but Headless, and we'll just call him Old Boy for now because I can't remember his name. But these guys are literally just, I mean, they've opened up essentially the gates to Happy Heck, and they are about to wreck the town, and it is crazy. So, a little recap, the Magia Vander just reset the barrier that protects the world and keeps out, the great chaos beyond that I'm sure we're going to find out pretty soon is what's up. But essentially, they're all depowered. Because if you can imagine, a magical skill that protects the whole world is probably pretty exhausting to enact. So, that's why it takes, a number of them to do it. And now, they're kind of like powering down and they're chilling. Well, now, these guys are attacking the town. And as you can see, it's not just like the one Grand Duke. Because if you can imagine, when our heroes kind of faced down with the Grand Duke, it took everything that all of them had. And at the end of the day, it literally took Will combining his magic with Sion's magic just to drop one. Now there's dozens of them. And they are just running through the town. And it is pandemonium at its most ruthless. And people are kind of like, why are there dungeons? It's not even that nonchalant, but like, why are there monsters from the lowest levels of the dungeon out here in the town just wrecking things? It makes no sense whatsoever. Now, we did meet Claire and Raj, these guys we met from the previous episode, and they're here to keep the town basically in check and to prevent literally what's happening from happening. So obviously, they're just getting ready to unleash a barrage. Claire releases a bunch of these, the Guardians. Remember these Guardians, they fought here, like, kind of at the beginning of the series. She's got a bunch of them under her control. Like, she's very, very powerful. And this dude here has got essentially all his mages, and they're getting ready to release a barrage on the Grand Dukes. And straight up, he's just like, unalive them all. Get rid of them. They've got to go. And to give you an idea of how immense this blast they just unleashed is, these are multi-level buildings, and that is the blast that they unleashed. So it is no joke. They are like, we are done. This has to end. And of course, here we meet up with all of our heroes from the previous previous season. You've got Sion, and I believe that's Wignall, and they're like, how did she create so many Guardians? How is she handling this? But you know what it is they're mages from the higher tower. Like, this is the level, the next level. Like, literally, these guys are, best we can kind of assume, one step below the Magia Vander, pretty close to that at least. And he finds out real quickly that it did nothing. This monster is completely unscathed. And he just unleashes barrage after barrage after barrage. And notice something here. This one is actually holding a weapon. And if that weapon looks familiar, it's because, boom! Old boy is relieved of half of his body mass. His entire lower extremities have been liberated from his upper extremities. Usually an unfavorable result from an exchange. Typically resulting in probably what I would consider to be the worst case, or pretty close to the worst case scenario. I mean, I guess there are, worser fates than this, but yeah, old boy is unceremoniously removed of his mortal coil, shall we say. The nicest way I can put that YouTube won't get mad at me. So this dude is just cleaved clean in two, and yeah. I love it. He's just lets out the mightiest roar. And of course, poor Claire's up there like, that's not great. They're immune to magic, and this is going to end so poorly. So incredibly poorly. They even wiped out her guardians like they were nothing. but she notices the sword. Now, that sword is what they called the Mage Slayer, or something along those lines. Maybe the translation might be a bit weird on that. But anyway, it is specifically designed to unalive mages. And if you remember, Finn, right here, brought that same exact sword to Cauldron in the last episode, or the last episode of the last season, and they're like, this is bad. And she's still like, kind of investigating that. But now they found out that, in her own words, they're being mass produced, and clearly they're being used here for the purposes of taking out all of the mages that they can. And the other thing she notices is that they are now infiltrating the school. So it's kind of presumed here that the attack on the city was a distraction. They're going after the tower. They're literally going after the Magia Vander. Now, the Magia Vander, like I said, they're now powered down. They've kind of, done their thing, and they're just resting. In fact, you'll get a whole exchange with them here in a minute, which is pretty crazy. In fact, right here. Like, so the enemy's here. Yeah, pretty much. And they're all just kind of like, well, this ain't great. Remember, like I said, they just did that big magical spell that protects the whole world. That is really exhausting on a mage, right? They're the best of the best, and now they're at their lowest point. This is why the onslaught is happening. And essentially, this dude right here, who we met in the last season, but we didn't get much of, he's like, the Magia must join the battle. And old boy here that we met, I'll say this. When we first met him, he seemed like a really crazy, benevolent dude. And I kind of felt like the way he was portrayed, at least prior, great savior of all, blah, blah, blah. He's the leader. He's the most powerful. And here we kind of get a dark side of him. He's like, you shut your mouth. Okay, just be quiet. Unless you want me to revoke your ability to speak, the same way I revoked your ability to see. Yes, this dude apparently literally plucked old boy's optical sensors, these things right here, from his face. So yeah, not cool. This dude's got a he's got a hardcore side to him. So not a dude you want to cross. And I love how just nonchalant this guy is about that news. He's like, I'm sure he knows. Like, there's no part of him that's like, oh yeah, old guy just admitted that he could just, off this guy with like it was nothing. And he's just chilling. He knows. Like, this is not news to him. This dude's got a weird streak, and it is what it is. But he even says, I forbid any Magia Vander from leaving this place. And it makes sense, right? Like, they're all up there. They're all chilling there. Like, they don't have anything they can really do to help at this point. Especially considering these things are immune to magic. All they would do is just go out there and get unalived. And really, if they were to do that, then, the barrier would start to fall, or at least portions of the barrier would fall, and then the world would be plunged into chaos. And, of course, we know that that's kind of what they're aiming for. He's like, that is the one thing we must avoid at all costs. And it's logical. I mean, it makes sense. It stinks for the people of the town. It stinks for the students. It stinks for everyone that is clearly caught in the onslaught. But it is honestly the only true and honest solution. Like, the needs of the many, even if it is like worldwide, outweigh the needs of even the people in your town. And it stinks because you're having to make a choice. Who do we save? The few people below us? Or the greater, mass of humanity as a whole. And of course, these guys are up here like, man, they're not coming down to play. That's no fun. That's no fun at all. And I love how nonchalant Headless is about this. He's just like, we'll just sit back and enjoy the view. Not cool, but very funny. I mean, not. It is. Admit it. It's at least humorous that he's just like, Well, especially considering he's like, we'll enjoy the view. Dude's got no head. I'm sure that this right here is probably his eye or whatever, but he got no head. How is he going to enjoy the view? Nevertheless, the whole town is thrust into pandemonium. Everything is just going crazy. And of course, we get the trope of the parent that's caught and the child that's like, trying to like cope with the whole situation. There's nothing that she can do. And here comes one of the monsters, and old girl here is just trying to intervene. But at the very last moment, we see that his arm is removed from his vestige as well. So, yeah, you'll never guess who it is. Of course it's Will. So this ends chapter 22, and now we kind of get a glimpse of what's going to happen. But there are dozens of these things around. And remember, it took Will everything he had, combined with everything Sion had, in conglomeration to beat one of these guys. And there's dozens of them rampaging all over the city and the school. So I have read a little bit ahead. I will say if you're reading the chapter, it does get engrossing. And it's easy to just keep going and forget where the chapter ends. But trust me, you're in for a treat. And we'll be back on Sunday to cover chapter 23. And chapter 23 is wonderful. We are we're pretty far from getting caught up. I believe there's 46, I want to say, chapters out on a monthly schedule. They are fairly long chapters. We will probably be caught up, if not by the end of the year, pretty close, and then we'll just get on a regular schedule of covering chapters when they drop. But for now, if you guys did enjoy this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you share this out with somebody who enjoyed the series, and I'll be back with more coming up really, well, on Sunday, chapter 23.